You guys been checking out the Diablo 4 beta? I sure have, and thanks to LG, this video sponsor, I've been doing it on this bad boy, the all-new LG Ultra Gear monitor. I'm excited to be joining the ultra-wide gang, and I'll tell you all about it at the end of the video. Gamers, very kind of you to take a break from Tears of the Kingdom to be with us here today. Very generous, unless of course you're still out there building penis robots using this video as second screen viewing. If that's the case, I support it. Let nothing stand in the way of your quest to build ever more elaborate phallic-shaped machinery. Personally, I'm all dicked out, burnt out. Going straight from Jedi Survivor into Redfall into Tears of the Kingdom has made for one hell of a month, and I'm just taking a bit of time to chill out before June hits with, Diablo 4 and Street Fighter 6 and Summer Games Fest and Final Fantasy 16. It does feel as though the industry is a little the same this week. The decks have been cleared so that everyone can give Zelda the attention it deserves, but that hasn't stopped some news from squeezing through the cracks, like those Switch 2 leaks that Nintendo did their best to squash, as well as some good news from Microsoft at a time when they desperately need some good headlines. So let's get right to it, shall we? Here comes the news. Well, Tears of the Kingdom has absolutely taken over the internet, just as everyone predicted it would. But to be fair, I don't think anyone predicted that most of the clips people would be posting online would be of literally crucifying Koroks. With Tears now launched, the question becomes, what's next for Nintendo? With no major titles announced, the running theory is that the big N are keeping their powder dry for the imminent announcement of their next-gen console, but far be it from Nintendo to admit that. Speaking to investors, Nintendo president Shuntaro Furukawa was asked about the declining sales of the Switch, as well as the obvious need for new hardware to power Nintendo's next era of game making. Furukawa wouldn't be drawn on the subject, saying, quote, "I don't think there is a need to release a next generation console," end quote. He said that it wasn't the right time to talk about specifics about the next generation machine, and that Nintendo were, quote, "continuing various developments for the future," end quote. So does that mean we'll be stuck with the Switch in perpetuity? No, of course not. What it means is that the president of a big company wants you to keep buying their thing right now, rather than hold off for some potential future purchase. It's predictable, it's his job, but it's also very much a lie by omission, as clearly Nintendo are working hard on the next-gen hardware, and it certainly stands to reason that we should be hearing about it sooner rather than later. Just in case you had any doubt about that, LCD screen manufacturer Sharp revealed that they were supplying screens for an upcoming game console. I wonder which one that is, given that none of the other consoles have LCD screens. Interestingly, when that story got picked up, Sharp quickly scrubbed any reference of that from their investor materials and went about as though no mention of an upcoming console had ever happened. Finally, Nikkei reported this week that they have sources close to Nintendo, probably their uncle, who says that development on Nintendo Switch's follow-up is progressing well, but that a launch won't happen until March 2024 at the earliest, which, yeah, makes sense. Reveal it towards the back end of this year for an early 2024 launch, ship it with a new Mario game and a remastered Tears of the Kingdom that runs at 60 FPS, and you're off to the races. None of this is official, of course, but it's all very logical. The Switch is old and everyone wants a new one. Nintendo will be more than happy to sell it to you when the time comes, which will no doubt be at some point in 2024, so stay tuned. Hey, we got some Starfield news this week. That's exciting, right? It's not huge news, but it's better than nothing. This week, Starfield got an official ESRB rating, M for mature, ages 17 and up. What's interesting about the ESRB rating is that it comes with a rating summary that highlights parts of the game that might ping a higher rating, and based on this summary, we actually learned quite a bit about Starfield. We learned that we are a miner who is tasked with finding artifacts scattered throughout the galaxy. Combat is, quote, fast-paced with frequent gunfire, cries of pain and explosions, end quote. Sounds like a good time. Despite earlier reports that there were no sexy times in Starfield, it turns out there might be sexy times in Starfield, quote, "The game contains some suggestive material in the dialogue and after sharing a bed with characters, e.g., life is a sexually transmitted disease that's 100% fatal. I'm all for getting a little wild, but next time let's try it without the jetpacks. Talk about seeing stars. Whew, that was amazing," end quote. Todd, you rascal, you just couldn't help yourself, could you? It's not just sex, mind you, it's drugs too, and maybe even some rock and roll if we're lucky. Quote, "A fictional drug, Aurora, is prominent in the game, with a section involving players' characters working in an illicit drug lab. Players can also obtain Aurora by stealing or buying it from vendors. Consuming Aurora results in a distortion effect on the screen," end quote. That all sounds pretty rad to the likes of you, but as an Australian, that gets my heart racing for all the wrong reasons. If there's one thing the Australian Ratings Board loves to do, it's ban video games that so much as mention illicit drugs, even fake made-up ones. If Starfield doesn't get a release over here, I'm gonna have to go and crash at someone's house in America for a few weeks while I review it. Let me know in the comments below if you have a spare couch. After the disappointment of Redfall, Xbox has a hell of a lot riding on Starfield this year, but it isn't putting all its eggs into one risky basket. It's putting its eggs into two risky baskets, which brings us to an update on their ongoing effort to acquire Activision Blizzard King. So obviously that effort isn't going super well, with the British CMA putting the kibosh on the deal in the same week that Redfall launched. A very rough week for Phil indeed. It was later revealed that the CMA ruling is not just a bad time, but a long time, as the ruling precludes Microsoft from re-attempting the acquisition within a 10-year period. Ouch. Microsoft vowed to appeal the ruling, publicly declaring that the CMA's judgment was the darkest day of their 40 years operating in the United Kingdom and declaring the UK closed for business. Microsoft would go on to appoint new legal counsel to lead the appeal process, a law firm specializing in regulatory appeals and with a strong track record behind them, making it clear that Microsoft are settling in for a long and likely bloody fight. They got some wind in their sails this week when the European Commission approved the transaction. The EU certainly took their time coming to the decision, but eventually concluded that the deal would not harm competition so long as Microsoft commits to a number of actions in relation to cloud gaming, thereby protecting the growth of that emerging industry. That's good news for Microsoft, but the British CMA are unmoved. They tweeted out their response to the EU ruling, saying, quote, "The CMA concluded that cloud gaming needs to continue as a free, competitive market to drive innovation and choice in this rapidly evolving sector. Microsoft's proposals, accepted by the European Commission today, would allow Microsoft to set the terms and conditions for this market for the next 10 years. While we recognize and respect the European Commission is entitled to take a different view, the CMA stands by its decision," end quote. Pretty straightforward and unsurprising. It's not like these guys were going to backflip on their decision just because the EU came to a different conclusion. I mean, if anything, it only makes the CMA more determined to hold the line. I don't know if you guys have studied history, but the British and the Europeans have had some beef in the past. Regardless, if Microsoft want to get this deal over the line, it's going to be in a British Court of Appeal. Expect that process to very slowly play out over the coming months and potentially years. Speaking of Blizzard, they are getting ready for the launch of Diablo 4 in early June, and this week Blizzard shared a huge amount of info about what to expect for the Diablo 4 endgame, specifically as it relates to things like their seasonal content model. Because yes, this game will have seasons, roughly once a quarter, with the first one kicking off in mid to late July, giving everyone the opportunity to level up one or two characters first. Each season will have a battle pass with a free and premium tier, with the premium tiers providing cosmetics only. The battle pass will cost you around $10, but there's also an accelerated version that lets you skip the first 20 tiers and includes a special cosmetic. It's the classic pay to not play the game trick that a lot of modern live service is built on. All this stuff is of course very familiar if you've been playing any modern day live service game. Sometimes it sucks, sometimes it doesn't. It ebbs and flows. I do think a healthy dollop of skepticism is warranted here after Diablo Immortal showed us just how far Blizzard is willing to go when it comes to monetizing this franchise, but obviously they are aiming for something different here, and hopefully Blizzard are able to deliver a worthwhile end product without making us feel like we're getting fleeced. Feedback on the game to this point has been mixed. From a visual, tonal, and structural perspective, Diablo 4 is looking solid, but sections of the hardcore community are calling out issues with core class design and in particular class balance, which is supposed to be a horrendous mess at this point. For more info on both of those topics, I direct you to this PC Gamer article titled "Class Balance is Still an Absolute Joke in Diablo 4, but the game has bigger problems." Illuminating read, I'll leave a link below the like button. Personally, I'm hopeful because I love Diablo 4 and I'd love for Diablo 4 to be great. I logged in this week to check out the Service Slam. Oh, and wouldn't you know it, here's me enjoying Diablo in glorious widescreen thanks to this video's sponsor, LG Ultra Gear. Life's good, hashtag sponsored. More on that at the end of the video. While one franchise is deep into its sequels, another is so deep that it's doing the old reboot thing. Maybe. This week, the Mortal Kombat social accounts have been teasing something. It started with a video of a clock going from 9 to 10 to 11, but instead of going to 12, it skips it and just goes straight to 1. Subtle like a jack sledgehammer. This is followed up by reporting from Jez Corden of Windows Central, who says he's managed to confirm that the next Mortal Kombat is indeed a reboot called Mortal Kombat 1, that it's launching in around September of this year, and that it will again feature crossover cameos, including potentially Peacemaker. Another rumor started doing the rounds that Homelander would be in there. Can I just say that as a serious The Boys enjoyer, I would buy Mortal Kombat just so I could play as Homelander. None of this is confirmed with a K, but given that we're about due for a Mortal Kombat game soon, and given that the Summer Games Fest is right around the corner with a K, it's highly likely that these rumors will be corroborated with a K very quickly with a Wait, never mind, that's not right. One other rumor doing the rounds at the moment is the existence of a Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. So just to be clear, this rumor has been around for literally years. It resurfaces every now and then, and it's never been true, but that doesn't mean it won't one day become true, because obviously the demand for a remake of what is arguably the best Metal Gear game is immense. Most recently, Special Nick, who has leaked a number of things in the past, has claimed that he's heard the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake is not only real, but will be revealed at a PlayStation showcase rumored to be going down either next week or soon thereafter. Jez Corden echoed the MGS3 rumor, saying that he heard similar things, while Andy Robinson of Video Game Central said back in March that he'd heard something similar and that the game will be released in 2024. Is any of this true? No one has any clue, but like I said, it makes sense. Konami are going back and exhuming their classics since they don't have a prayer of making any good new games. Just look at eFootball for evidence of that. The Silent Hill 2 remake is just about to wrap up its development, so yeah, it makes sense that the Metal Gear franchise would get a similar treatment. If any of this is true, we'll likely find out over the coming weeks, either during a PlayStation showcase or at the Summer Games Fest in June. Speaking of Summer Games, it's coming up fast and Jeff Keighley has begun to hype things up. This week, his official accounts tweeted out who would be attending either the partner showcase or his special Playdays event, which is a hands-on thing for media and content creators. Jeff's done well to attract a broad range of partners, including Activision Blizzard, Amazon, Bandai Namco, Capcom, CD Projekt Red, Devolver Digital, EA, Epic Games, Gearbox, PlayStation, Sega, Square Enix, Ubisoft, Xbox, and many, many more. E3 is well and truly dead, but Jeff isn't wasting any time at all filling that void. While Summer Games will certainly be small this year, I do expect that it will get much, much bigger in the future. By the way, this is a good time to recap what to expect over that period. There is a special Summer Games Fest showcase on the Thursday. Devolver Digital have just announced they're doing something on that day as well. The PC Game Show is on Sunday morning, followed by Xbox and then the Starfield showcase, while Ubisoft are doing their thing on the Monday. So it's not as many showcases as we've had back in the E3 period, but it's still more than enough to keep us occupied for a few days. I will actually be over there in LA. I've already booked a number of very exciting hands-on sessions, stuff I can't talk about yet, but I will be covering each major showcase and every major hands-on event. So if you want to stay on top of all that, be sure to subscribe and ding the notification bell. Just a warning, there will be quite a few notifications that week. A quick lightning round to finish off. Bungie are racking up huge W's in their battle against cheat makers. While technology side solutions have significantly reduced the amount of hacking going on in-game, Bungie is simultaneously rolling out a parallel strategy referred to in legal circles as sue the pants off them. Bungie has a number of lawsuits active against known cheat makers, and while some of them have fallen flat, this week alone, Bungie has notched up 2 wins totaling some $22 million in damages. Will these organizations or people pay up? Absolutely not. They don't have any money, really, but hopefully it serves as a deterrent to other cheat makers thinking about getting into the business. Right now, everyone's out exploring Hyrule, but Bandai Namco would like to remind you that the lands between and you guys had some good times, and maybe if it doesn't work out with that Zelda chick, you could call them and have lunch, I don't know. The publisher announced full earnings for the year, over $7 billion in revenue. 2.5 billion of that was attributable to their gaming business, and they confirmed that Elden Ring has now sold 20 million copies. Just an absolutely remarkable result for a developer whose previous titles were always critical darlings, but never achieved anywhere near this level of mass market success. The Shadow of Erdtree DLC is currently in development. Hopefully it isn't too far away. Speaking of big numbers, gambling conglomerate and occasional game maker Konami announced record high revenues but declining profits. Don't care, to be honest, but one interesting tidbit did shake out of that, and that was that eFootball, their free-to-play football game released for all platforms including mobile, has passed 600 million downloads. 600 million for a game that became one of the lowest rated games of all time on Steam when it released last year. Yet another reminder of just how small the core gaming market is when compared to mobile. EA has recommitted itself to Battlefield. It wasn't really in doubt since we've heard of a range of Battlefield titles currently in development at various EA studios. But this week, EA boss Andrew Wilson said that Battlefield is, quote, firmly implanted in EA's strategy, building games and experiences that attract and entertain massive online communities across platforms, across business models, across geographies, and we think that Battlefield is going to be a meaningful part of our future. We'll share more as time progresses, end quote. Man, that guy can really take something as cool as we're making more Battlefield games and make it sound like some sort of shitty corporate PowerPoint slide buzzword salad. Terrible. Anyway, finally, if you're sad that the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy is over, I get it, I feel you, but can I suggest something that might keep the magic alive? The Guardians of the Galaxy game from Eidos Montreal absolutely rules. It is top tier, and this week it just got Steam Deck verified. If you have a deck, put some Guardians on your deck. If you don't have a deck, just play Guardians of the Galaxy anyway because it's the best. and unlike the movies, we are never going to get a sequel for it. Very sad times. So what got announced or delayed this week? Well, very briefly, A Plague Tale Requiem got a performance mode for PS5 and Xbox Series consoles. That's kind of a big deal since the game was capped at 30 FPS on release, and even then it struggled to maintain that. The update also delivers a number of new PC settings, making it easier to optimize performance across different hardware. It was just announced this week, and it is live right now. Hogwarts Legacy has just been released for last-gen consoles, and this week the developer announced that the Switch version still exists. That's kind of a big deal since it's not at all uncommon to see Switch ports cancelled at the 11th hour, as Firaxis just did with Marvel's Midnight Suns. Anyway, not only is a Hogwarts Switch port confirmed, but it's actually got a release date, November 14th this year. Similar to Biomutant, that's one of those very strange, very distant Switch port release dates, but hey, at least we know it is on the way. Friends vs. Friends is an interesting one. It's a PvP shooter that also incorporates some deck building elements, since your loadout and abilities are all represented by cards. I'm really into the art style for this one. I think it just looks cool. It's published by Raw Fury, who generally know a winner when they see it, and the title just got a release date, May 30th. You know what else is dropping May 30th? System Shock. Holy shit, I cannot believe it. Feels like decades that this thing has been in development, including a soft reboot at one point to get things feeling closer to the original source material. This is being made by Night Dive Studios, who specialize in exhuming classics and breathing new life into them. I played the demo of this at a recent Steam Next Fest and was really taken aback by how discombobulating it was. So clearly drawn from an era when the design syntax we rely on today hadn't arrived yet. This feels like trying to use a computer before Windows was a thing. I actually really enjoyed it, I found it fascinating, and while I'm definitely going to be too busy to review this one at launch, I'd like to circle back to it at some point in the future. There are some delay announcements this week as well, and some of them are pretty heartbreaking, let me tell you. On the lighter end of the spectrum is Amnesia: The Bunker, which copped a very small delay of 2 weeks. It will now ship on June 6th, but the very good news is that they announced a demo is on the way, playable from May 22nd. Always cool when developers do demos prior to release, love that. Goodbye Volcano High is that angsty fairy game, and it too got a delay. It was meant to ship in June, but will now ship August 29th. The team's citing need for more time to finish and polish the game, fair enough. The next one isn't a delay per se, but it sort of is, given that I know a bunch of us were hoping that Dragon Age would drop sometime this year. Turns out that is not happening. As part of EA's most recent earnings call, they did lay out their planned 2023 release slate, and Dragon Age was nowhere to be seen. They did point to 2 unannounced titles coming this year, but one of those is a racing game, and another is an EA Sports title. Plus, Dragon Age Dreadwolf is well and truly announced. This means that the earliest we can expect Dreadwolf to drop is April 2024, which is when EA's next financial year begins. That is a bit of a bummer, but hey, take all the time you need, BioWare. Dreadwolf is the first big thing out of BioWare since Anthem, and it would be great to see them knock it out of the park on this one. And finally, and this one really hurts, Hollow Knight Silksong has been officially delayed to who knows when. So last year, Phil Spencer showed off Silksong during Xbox's June showcase, and when he did so, he promised that every title we'd see in that showcase was going to be dropping in the next 12 months. That means that Silksong should have been dropping in the next 2 weeks. Sadly though, that is not the case, as a Team Cherry representative took to Twitter to say, quote, "Hey gang, just a quick update about Silksong. We had planned to release in the first half of 2023, but development is still continuing. We're excited by how the game is shaping up, and it's gotten quite big, so we want to take the time to make it as good as we can. Expect more details from us once we get closer to release," end quote. No new date, no new window, just a smell you later, I guess. Bit of a bummer, but it is encouraging to hear the title has gotten bigger, as it means we're no doubt in for something chunky. But yeah, I guess we're just gonna have to keep waiting a little, or maybe a lot longer. So what came out last week? Well, if you don't know, then I suspect you are not a regular around these parts, since Tears of the Kingdom has been one of the most hotly anticipated games from the moment of its announcement years ago, and last week it finally arrived to thunderous applause, universal acclaim, a light spray of review bombing, and a hell of a lot of penises, but we'll come back to that in the feel-good block. The review embargo for Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom broke just as the game was released worldwide, and I don't think anyone was ready for how high these scores were going to go. 97 on OpenCritic, which makes it the highest rated game on that platform, since OpenCritic doesn't go as far back as to include the likes of Ocarina, Tony Hawk, Soul Calibur, etc. Those classics from back in the day that were all reviewed before the internet was a thing. Tears of the Kingdom racked up near unanimous 10 out of 10 scores, except from one publication, G Infinity Esports, who scored it a 6, saying, quote, While interesting, we fail to see how this will ever be a successful esport, end quote. No, I'm joking, I just made that up. The review is actually a really interesting read as it echoes many of the sentiments put forward by people who don't enjoy Breath of the Wild. The arduousness of it, the intimidating expansiveness, its middling combat, the lack of dungeons and compelling storytelling, it's all true for sure, and I think reviews that focus on those sorts of things are important since no matter how good a game is, there's always going to be plenty of people who just don't gel with it. Me personally, I thought this was extraordinary, and I say that as someone who really liked Breath of the Wild but wasn't as taken with it as many others were. In my review, link below the like button, I said that Tears of the Kingdom was one of the most sophisticated video games ever made, and that it will be years until any game is able to follow in its wake. It improves on so much of what made Breath of the Wild great while also adding so many new things that it's difficult to believe that Nintendo packed all of this into one game. Much has been made of the game's poor performance, and yeah, there's no denying that, but I always view those things in context. I expect something very different from the Switch than I do from an Xbox Series X or an RTX 4090 powered PC. The fact is, Tears of the Kingdom does far more with far less than any other AAA game I have played this year. When a game goes this hard on a 10-year-old chipset powering a 7-year-old handheld, I'm willing to give it a pass when the frame rate chugs down occasionally. Anyway, Tears of the Kingdom is out now, and since it is most likely the swan song for the Nintendo Switch, the wait for Nintendo's next generation of hardware has officially begun. So what's coming out this week? Well, H-Rot is a boomer shooter built in the Quake engine or one of its derivatives. It's set in the former Soviet Czechoslovakia. It's been in early access since 2021, where it's amassed a boatload of positive reviews, pushing it into that overwhelmingly positive territory. It just locked in a 1.0 release date, and that date is today. It's actually out right now, exclusive to PC. No word on potential console ports as yet. This is a self-published title, so a console release might be a bit of a stretch, but we'll see. Also out today is Humanity. This one is basically Lemmings, but with lower stakes and a way cooler soundtrack, since it comes from the people that made Tetris Effect, and those people certainly know a bop when they hear it. Reviews for this one dropped overnight actually, and boy has this done well. A mighty 84 on OpenCritic. IGN absolutely loved it, scoring it a 9, saying, quote, "Humanity is a beautiful, modern reimagining of Lemmings that blends many different genres into its clever puzzles, and its powerful level editor has dizzying potential," end quote. While Push Square were almost as impressed, scoring it an 8 and saying, quote, "If you're after something a little different, give this a shot. They don't often make them like this anymore," end quote. Don't forget that this one is actually launching as a day one release into the PS Plus extra tier, so if you've got that, then you have got this. Starship Troopers Extermination is one I'm actually hella interested in. I shouted this one out last week when that release date announcement came in hot. The game is dropping into early access on the 17th, exclusive to PC for now. This is very much the co-op horde shooter you'd expect given the nature of the IP. As I said earlier, I don't think anyone's expecting something that will surpass Left 4 Dead or whatever, but if you can get a few hours of fun out of this with your mates, then I'd consider that a win. Firmament is not really getting much play in terms of marketing and hype, and that's a little surprising, since at least some of the dev team were behind the original Myst. If you don't remember Myst, it means that you are still young. Congratulations. But everyone else who's managed to stave off the Alzheimer's might remember Myst as the highest selling PC game of all time until The Sims came along and knocked it off that perch. Firmament looks to be picking up right where Myst left off, and while the puzzle-driven walking simulator is now far more ubiquitous today than it was back in 1993, it's sure to be at least a little bit intriguing to see this team's latest take on a genre they defined and redefined back in their heyday. Firmament is PC exclusive and it drops on the 18th. The Outlast Trials is a new direction for the Outlast franchise, in that this one is going co-op. You can play solo, but you can also party up with up to 3 other people, working together to outrun some big baddie chasing you. It's class-based in that specific characters have unique abilities that can aid you and your teammates while working together, and yeah, it looks interesting. Not really my jam, as I'm a bit of a scaredy cat. Resident Evil is about as much horror as I can handle. Still, if this one is on your radar, then it's dropping on the 19th, exclusive to PC. And finally, something I'm very pumped about is this one, LEGO 2K Racer. Why am I so excited about this? I don't know, to be honest. I just think it looks fucking cool. I mean, it does serve as a bit of a perfect circle Venn diagram of some of my recent interests, including the excellent Hot Wheels Unleashed and the LEGO Star Wars game, which absolutely ruled. This also has a whole open world thing going on, like Forza Horizon, which I also enjoyed. So yeah, a lot of interesting things in the mix, wrapped up in some top tier LEGO presentation, because if there's one thing that LEGO always manages to nail, it is looking good. This is very much a build your own car kind of affair with a garage feature that lets you do just that. But there's also pre-built stuff that you can take on the road if you're so inclined. Interestingly, 2K sent out review code for this one over the weekend, and they said there's no review embargo. You can just review it whenever you like, which is very unusual, so expect to see reviews for this one trickling out over the coming days. I'll be playing it this week and will either review it or let you know how I went with it on next week's show. LEGO 2K Drive drops on the 19th for all platforms, making it the only game to hit Switch and Xbox this week, because everything else I listed this this point has been PC or PlayStation exclusive. To be fair, I think we're all still busy playing Tears of the Kingdom, so I'm not surprised to see publishers are kind of just sitting this week out. Hey, what do you get when you cross the old Steamboat Mickey Mouse with Doom? This, so put it on your radar. This is Mouse. It exploded all over social media this week when the trailer suddenly dropped on Steam. It was one of those like, why hasn't someone done this already? I mean, Cuphead amply demonstrated that there is strong demand for that 1920s or 30s style animation, so why not make a first-person shooter out of that? Mouse is still clearly very, very early days, but already it's got enough style and panache to make it worth keeping an eye on. It's a self-published title from Fumi Games, so this appears to be their first Steam release. Hell of a first impression if you ask me. I'm sure it's still got a long way to go until launch, but I for one have already added it to my wish list. If you'd like to do the same, I've profiled it over on my Steam Curator page, which also has links to all of the other put this on your radar stuff I've recently covered. I'll leave a link to all of that below the like button. Sort of free stuff time now, and quite a few interesting things to shout out this week. Not so with Epic though, who right now are still giving away some Sims 4 DLC, and their next giveaway title is shrouded in mystery. I will say though that in the past when they've done this, the final reveal has usually been pretty impressive, making it more than worth the time to boot up the launcher and wait the 35 seconds it takes for the homepage to load. If you happen to forget, I'll remind you next week, but if you're curious, the new mystery offering will be live this Friday, whatever it may be. The PS Plus Extra and Premium tiers have had their monthly refresh, and it's a strong showing. Sony continues to build out its Game Pass competitor with a consistent lineup of strong back catalog titles and the occasional day one release. One of those day one releases is here in the form of Humanity, that Lemmings-like game I mentioned earlier. If it's big hitting back catalog you're after, then Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart arrives on the service. Just an absolutely superb 3D platform adventure game, and hands down one of the best looking video games ever made. Insomniac is doing a huge amount of heavy lifting for Sony this generation, and Rift Apart is a perfect example of that. Watch Dogs Legion and Dishonored 2 join the service if you're in the mood for some immersive sim action, and the modern Tomb Raider trilogy arrives there as well. None of these hold a candle though to this month's haymaker, Bus Simulator 21. You think I'm joking? I guarantee that Bus Simulator has sold like 5 times more copies than all those other games combined, and it probably has a multi-million-dollar esports league to boot. Only 2 other sort of free shouts this week. The first is that Layers of Fear demo I mentioned earlier. That's out right now if you'd like to give it a squiz. And Capcom have announced an open beta for Street Fighter 6 kicking off on the 19th and running until the 21st. This will no doubt be the very last chance to test the game before its official release in June. If you're getting ready to hit the competitive circuit, this is the last warm-up round before Fight Night. Our feel-good story for the week can be only one thing: a celebration of all the weird shit people are building in Tears of the Kingdom. I had predicted that the TTP, or time to penis, for this one would be very low indeed, but I was genuinely surprised to see that people were actually building other things as well, and then using those things to torture poor defenseless Koroks. Luckily, Austin has kindly put together a bit of a collection of the finest builds doing the rounds. Austin, take it away. I'm not a TikTok dude by any means, but I will admit that even I booted up that cursed app to browse the Tears of the Kingdom hashtag just to see what I could find. It's a good time, and it genuinely makes me really happy when games like this drop. Stuff that's just so good and so fun that it brings out all this enthusiasm and creativity. The last time I remember it being like this was Elden Ring. It's rare, but it's always great, and I'm super glad that Nintendo were able to deliver something as fun and as breakthrough as this. I'm still playing Tears of the Kingdom actually, mopping up shrines and clearing out sections of the map in the post-game. It's perfect for what I'm looking for at the moment. A bit of a break before things get nuts again in June. Still, June is looking super fun, and as much as I enjoy the downtime, I'm also looking forward to getting over to LA so I can go hands-on with some of the biggest stuff dropping this year and potentially beyond. If you want to be along for the ride, be sure to subscribe and ding the notification bell. And if you happen to have enjoyed this video, I sure would appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. That always helps out the video and the channel in a big way. I want to thank you, as always, for taking the time out of your day to listen to me ramble about video games. I always have plenty of fun putting this show together, and I'm thankful that people tune in for it. You know what else I'm thankful for? This video's sponsor, LG Ultra Gear. So, why don't we take a look at that right now? Alright, well I've always been a 2, sometimes 3 monitor man, but recently LG hit me up to see if I wanted to check out their new Ultra Gear monitor. It's been a while since I'd run an OLED setup, but Diablo 4 was about to release, and that is a game that supports ultra wide, so I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So this is it. This is my new setup. I've got some Diablo 4 ultra wide gameplay on there, not too shabby. So obviously this looks really impressive. It's really big, it's curved, sure, but the truly impressive thing about this monitor is actually its specs. The LG Ultra Gear's motto is built for speed, and it is because this is the world's first 240Hz OLED gaming monitor. That is a big deal if you play games like Overwatch, Counter-Strike, Valorant, etc. Games where single frames can mean the difference between victory and defeat. You want a monitor that can keep up with all the action, and no other ultra-wide OLED monitor can keep pace like the Ultra Gear can. Because it's an OLED panel, you get that best-in-class pixel dimming, resulting in sharper contrasts, deeper blacks, and brighter colors than on other panels. As I mentioned, it does sport an 800R curve, providing the best possible multi-viewing angles with less distortion. Plus, it's just so much more immersive to have this panel create this sort of space around you, allowing you to sink deeper into whatever you're playing. The bezels on this are remarkably small, resulting in a very sleek profile, and it has an anti-glare panel, so you don't have to worry about distracting reflections. It is G-Sync and FreeSync compatible, plus it supports HDMI 2.1 for variable refresh rate on both next-gen GPUs and current-gen consoles like the PS5 and the Xbox Series. One feature I really love is picture by picture. I was scared to make the jump and leave my second monitor behind, but with a simple press of a button, I can have 2 inputs showing on screen at the same time. Here I am watching an excellent Tears of the Kingdom review, and then I hit a button and boom, I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom on the other side of the screen. Whether it's competitive shooters demanding lightning fast response times, single player experiences that benefit from big immersive viewing areas, or the convenience that comes from being able to multitask like never before, the LG Ultra Gear monitor does it all. Check it out for yourself, click the link below in the description or the pinned comment. Thanks LG for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.